The space apocalypse event, resource catastrophe, a severe depletion or contamination of water or essential minerals on Mars or Earth could spark a desperate competition for remaining resources. For example, a major failure in water extraction on Mars could leave the colony vulnerable, forcing it to depend heavily on Earth or nearby asteroids. Pirate takeover of key routes. If pirate groups gain control over essential trade routes or strategic mining operations, they could choke the flow of vital resources between Earth and Mars. This blockade would create black market monopolies and escalate tensions as Earth and Mars race to secure alternative sources or negotiate costly terms for the release of seized assets. Space militarization as a solution. Space-based. In response, both Earth and Mars may rapidly deploy defensive systems in orbit to secure trade lanes and deter pirate attacks. Advanced lasers, EMP devices, and railguns on satellites could be deployed, enabling governments to strike from orbit. Permanent Space Force. Governments and major corporations might form a dedicated joint space force tasked with patrolling routes, escorting high-value shipments, and protecting mining operations by militarizing existing platforms, such as SpaceX's Starship or Space Force's secure satellites. They could monitor and defend against hostile entities in space. Game theory, dynamics in space warfare. Mutual deterrence and brinkmanship. As Earth and Mars establish orbital weapons, an arms race could intensify. A classic hawk-dove dilemma emerges as each planet must balance defense spending and the risk of escalation. Choosing to arm heavily could provoke a space Cold War, while a lighter approach might increase piracy risk. Nash equilibrium of defense versus cost. Both Earth and Mars may reach a point where the cost of maintaining orbital defenses balances with the security benefits. They may settle into a Nash equilibrium where neither can afford to reduce defenses without risking pirate or rogue attacks on resource flows. Resource monopoly and strategic alliances. Monopolizing space resources. Both planets will aim to secure exclusive mining rights over key asteroids rich in water or rare minerals. As a result, interplanetary laws might emerge to mediate and enforce these monopolies, regulated by an interplanetary authority, the Space Trade Federation. Alliances against space threats. Earth, Mars, and possibly third-party entities may form temporary alliances, pooling resources to counter piracy and defend critical assets, with a shared goal of maintaining the resource supply. These alliances could regulate or license the use of space-based weapons, fostering a cooperative defense framework. The role of the space apocalypse in justifying militarization. Permanent space economy shift. The crisis cements the need for heavily fortified trade routes and a militarized space economy, accelerating the weaponization of open.
Pirates would get weakly defended cargo vessels, forcing Mars and Earth to invest heavily in arms. Originally designed to provide internet globally, Starlink could become a strategic partner in building a government-backed communication infrastructure. If Starlink internet services are used by government agencies, Musk's technology would essentially become an extension of national digital infrastructure, especially in remote or strategically critical areas. Twitter X, Musk's acquisition of Twitter, enables a platform for public discourse and communication that be leveraged as an unofficial digital town hall, especially if government agencies embrace it as a key outlet for public information. By coordinating with government entities, Musk could control a substantial share of public information flow, fostering a government-centric user base that relies on X for news and official updates. 2. Defense and space partnerships. SpaceX. Through contracts with NASA and the U.S. Department of Defense, SpaceX is positioned as a primary partner for space transport. Musk's long-term vision includes Mars colonization, but shorter term it involves deploying government-owned payloads military satellites, and critical infrastructure. If government reliance grows, SpaceX could act as the primary contractor for human space exploration, making it an effective wing of government operations in space. Tesla and SolarCity, Musk's companies in the energy sector, already cater to eco-friendly technologies, which are often incentivized by government policy. As governments increasingly shift towards green energy mandates, Tesla and SolarCity's tech could become integral to national clean energy goals, from civilian transportation to emergency power infrastructure. Now, 3, monetizing digital infrastructure and the digital meta. Neuralink. This company represents Musk's interest in directly interfacing with the human brain, potentially revolutionizing how people interact with technology. If Neuralink becomes popular, it could serve as the backbone for governmental data collection and human-computer interface applications, effectively becoming a digital meta for cognitive enhancement in government programs, education, and military applications. The digital meta on Mars. If Musk achieves his vision of Mars colonization, he may set up a communications infrastructure there, and any Martian colony would likely rely on Earth's government support initially. Starlink and Neuralink would support interplanetary communication and digital governance, effectively putting Musk's technology as the backbone of this extraterrestrial infrastructure. #4. Long-term vision for a government-driven metastate. Musk's endgame could be a quasi-governmental status where his companies form the digital and infrastructural skeleton of future government operations. With Starlink, SpaceX, Neuralink, and Tesla, he could establish integrated communications. Starlink's satellite internet could evolve into a global, government-subsidized service, effectively managing the world's digital
Transglobal.
connectivity. Defensive infrastructure. SpaceX, in tandem with Starlink, could serve a national security function by enabling secure communication for government and defense. The Martian colony as a government outpost. By establishing the first colonies, Musk's companies could run Martian infrastructure, with SpaceX and Starlink acting as primary communication and travel channels. By aligning closely with government agencies and providing key infrastructure, Musk could effectively integrate his technology as an essential and possibly inseparable wing of government operations both on Earth and on future Mars colonies. Play out, with Earth and Mars each developing distinct but interconnected roles. 1. Interplanetary trade and specialization. Resource extraction on Mars. Mars might initially function as a resource-driven economy, mining rare minerals, metals, and even water. With the higher costs of extraction on Earth, Mars could specialize in these materials, especially those scarce on Earth. Manufacturing on Earth. Earth, with its established infrastructure, would handle manufacturing and complex production, shipping essentials, and advanced equipment to Mars. Early Martian colonies would rely heavily on Earth's manufacturing economy to supply essential goods, especially in technology, medicine, and high-precision instruments. Hammer 2, data and digital goods as a major trade medium. Starlink and the digital economy. High costs of physical goods transport between planets might mean that data becomes the main interplanetary commodity. Software, information services, and virtual experiences could be transmitted through Starlink at light speed, creating a booming economy of digital goods and services between Earth and Mars. Education and training. Earth could become the primary hub for scientific research and knowledge generation, exporting education and training to Mars. Mars could focus on adapting these insights to its unique environment, fostering a specialized Martian knowledge economy over time. 3. Financial systems and currency. Dual currency system. A Mars-specific currency could emerge alongside Earth-based currencies, each with their own value influenced by supply chains, costs of production, and transport. Transactions between the two planets could involve exchange rates based on the economic strengths of each. Resource exports from Mars, manufactured imports from Earth. Blockchain and decentralized finance, DeFi. Given the time delay in communication, up to 24 minutes between planets, blockchain-based systems might become standard. Autonomous smart contracts could govern interplanetary transactions, helping maintain stable trade relationships with without requiring real-time oversight. Number 4, investment and infrastructure development. SpaceX as the interplanetary logistics giant. With SpaceX potentially managing Mars-Earth transport, Musk's companies could serve as the primary shipping and logistics provider. Governments and private companies would invest heavily in these routes, creating a space trade lane similar to Earth's trade routes, but in the solar system. Terraformation and real estate. As Mars becomes more habitable, Martian land and infrastructure would become valuable assets. Corporations and individuals on Earth may buy or lease property on Mars for resource extraction, research, or habitation, creating a booming real estate sector in Mars' economy. 5, potential challenges and regulations. Trade regulations and tariffs. With two distinct economies, questions would arise on how to regulate trade between planets. Would Mars operate independently, or would Earth set up a governing body to oversee interplanetary trade and taxes? Environmental and ethical concerns. Mars would need strict regulations to avoid over-extraction and environmental damage, echoing Earth's history of resource depletion. Ethical issues might also arise around labor practices in the treatment of early Martian settlers. 6, self-sufficiency and economic independence. Mars's drive for self-sufficiency. Initially dependent on Earth for essentials, Mars would likely strive for self-sufficiency as its population and infrastructure grow. Eventually, Mars could develop its own industries, agriculture, and technologies tailored to the Martian environment, leading to greater independence and possibly even economic rivalry with Earth. In essence, a two-planet economy would blur the lines between interplanetary dependence and independence, with Earth and Mars developing complementary roles. Over time, this economy could give rise to a new era of trade, governance, and culture that spans the solar system, where Earth, Mars, and the routes between them become hotspots for strategic decisions, alliances, and potential conflict over resources. Scarcity and the value of hard goods. Water as the ultimate hard good. Water would be essential on both Mars and for long-duration space travel, making it highly valuable and scarce. Water could serve as currency in the Martian economy or as leverage in negotiations. Both Earth and Mars would prioritize water storage, recycling, and reclamation technologies, and control over water-rich asteroids or Martian ice deposits would become a strategic advantage. Metal and mineral monopolies. Metals like rare earth elements, platinum, or iron would be vital for colony building and advanced technology. Mars, with its presumed abundance of raw materials, could become a primary supplier, giving it leverage over Earth's manufacturing sectors. Nash 2. Interplanetary shipping and the risk of piracy. Space pirates and rogue entities. With valuable cargo moving between planets, space piracy would become a real threat, especially in the asteroid belt or on trade routes. Rogue groups might attack or seize shipments of water, metals, or food. Pirates would target weakly defended cargo vessels, forcing Mars and Earth to invest heavily in armed escorts, anti-piracy defenses, and counter-piracy tactics. Pirate bases and black markets. Pirates could establish hidden bases on asteroids or in the outer reaches of Mars's orbit, creating black markets for stolen goods. These bases might attract desperate settlers or rogue corporations willing to purchase stolen water, metals, or high-value goods at discounted prices. Top 3. Strategic alliances and deterrence. Alliances between Earth and Mars for mutual defense. To counter piracy and monopolies over scarce resources, Earth and Mars might formalize a military alliance or trade federation to protect trade routes. Such a coalition could pool resources to protect shipping lanes and ensure a continuous flow of essentials. Third-party states or corporations, private companies, new planetary bases, or even asteroid colonies might emerge, complicating alliances. These third-party entities could ally with Earth, Mars, or even pirates, seeking profit in any form and potentially acting as middlemen or brokers in black market trades. 4. Game theory analysis of resource control and piracy. The hawk-dove dilemma. Earth and Mars would face a hawk-dove situation, deciding whether to cooperate, dove, or aggressively protect resources and trade routes. Hawk. A hawk strategy, military patrols, fortifying shipping lanes, would deter piracy but could lead to an arms race. A dove approach, limited defenses, focus on diplomacy, would lower costs but increase vulnerability to resource theft and blockades. Nash equilibrium in defense spending. Mars and Earth would likely reach a Nash equilibrium in their investment in space defenses. If Earth spends heavily on patrols, Mars would be incentivized to underinvest in defense, relying on Earth's efforts. If both underinvest, pirates gain the advantage, whereas overinvestment by both raises costs without significant added security benefits. And 5, bargaining and negotiation for resource control. Water trade negotiations. Water-rich asteroids would be especially prized. Rather than outright control, Earth and Mars might negotiate access to these assets, bargaining over access, quotas, and shared infrastructure. This could lead to resource sharing agreements or mutual control zones where both planets' interests are represented. Brinkmanship with pirates and rogue entities. Rogue groups could leverage their control over scarce resources as bargaining chips, potentially extorting both planets by threatening to withhold resources or disrupt trade routes. Earth and Mars would need to weigh the costs of negotiation with these groups against the potential escalation into open conflict. 6, long-term strategic outcomes. Resource control dictating hegemony. Over time, the planet that controls water and rare minerals would become economically dominant. If Mars monopolizes these resources, it could demand favorable terms in all trade and economic negotiations with Earth. Conversely, if Earth maintains control over essential supplies and advanced technology, Mars would be forced into a subordinate economic position. Military deterrence versus diplomatic trade networks. If Mars and Earth build strong cooperative defense networks, piracy may be minimized, allowing stable trade. If trust between Earth and Mars falters, both might increase military presence, creating a space Cold War with escalating costs and an eventual risk of direct conflict over control of resource zones. 7, the potential rise of a space trade federation. Formation of a trade federation to regulate resources. Both Earth and Mars, along with third-party actors, might eventually form a space trade federation to standardize and secure trade routes. This federation would regulate prices, enforce anti-piracy measures, and mediate disputes over resources, aiming to prevent monopolies, limit piracy, and balance control over essential goods. Pirates as an enduring risk or ally to the Federation. Pirates might continue to operate on the fringes, but some could strike deals with the Federation to act as privateers or licensed traders. In exchange for safe passage or rewards, they would align with Federation interests, creating a formalized but tenuous balance between lawful and unlawful space actors. In a two-planet economy influenced by game theory and the presence of space pirates, Earth and Mars would constantly weigh cooperation, competition, and defensive strategies. The future of such an economy would depend on whether they can strike a balance between securing resources, defending against piracy, and developing a cooperative trade framework that sustains both planets.
The space apocalypse of it blows, resource monopoly and strategic alliances, monopolizing space resources. Both planets will aim to secure exclusive mining rights over key asteroids rich in water or rare minerals. This apocalypse and justifying militarization, permanent space economy shift. The crisis cements the need for heavily fortified trade routes and a militarized